can't have your cake and eat it. For example, Eliud Owalo recently resigned as an advisor to President William Ruto. So he said, we are not sure whether he actually did. He'll tell us and give us proof. And because he says he'd like to become the next president of the Republic of Kenya. He's our guest for the next hour. Good morning.
Morning.
It's good of you to join us. You know the drill. Before we start the conversation, Janet is going to give you the quote.
Right. Today's quote is based on the day being International Day of Peaceful Coexistence. Albert Camus once said, "Peace is the only battle worth waging." Peace is the only battle worth waging.
I subscribe to that school of thought. Yeah, we need peace for coexistence of Kenyan communities. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll tell us how, where it lies. The only battle. I was going to say, you'll tell us where it lies in terms of what you're hoping to achieve. Should you become president?
Shortly, yeah.
Let's start with, in a country where people are like, I will resign when I die. Is that someone who said that?
I'd rather die.
Oh, I'd rather die than resign. Okay.
Paraphrasing.
Why resign?
I resigned because I had declared my intent to run for the presidency of the Republic of Kenya in the year 2027. And my continued stay in office as the Deputy Chief of Staff, not advisor, by the way, Deputy Chief of Staff, was no longer tenable. So rather than run the risks of conflict of interest by engaging in partisan politics when I'm still holding a position in the top echelons of government within the executive, the most logical thing to do in conformity to the dictates of the Constitution was to resign. Yeah.
Deputy Chief of Staff.
Yes, please.
What is that job?
I've explained that to you before,
yes,
but my role entailed ensuring that government projects and programs are delivered, and also facilitating efficiency within government, overseeing efficiency function in government. Yeah.
So here is the person who is supposed to be ensuring that this government is running smoothly.
Yes.
And on a daily basis, that's what you are waking up to do.
Absolutely.
On a daily basis.
Yes, tirelessly.
But 2 years to the election, this person feels, no, I'd rather be the one who's president of Kenya.
Yes, that's
Is that an indictment on the government of the day?
I leave that to Kenyans to...
Now we are asking you, I mean, what is it that would make you feel,
right,
I am in charge of ensuring that this government delivers?
Yes.
And then you say, no, I want to be the head of the next government.
So that it
And yet you know the head of this government will be your challenger in the next one.
I don't see any contradiction there because as much as I was in charge of that function, you need to understand how government works. You may be holding a position in government, but you are not the ultimate decision maker. And that's why I've decided that I'm going to sit at the head of that table to be the ultimate decision maker. There are positions you may hold in government, but you are more of an advisor, but the discretion as to whether or not your advice will be implemented lies with somebody else. Yeah.
So you are
and
frustrated.
there are so many intrigues.
You are frustrated with how the decision maker was.
Not really. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I was frustrated. I just want things to be done better. I want to draw on my lessons in government to inform what I'm going to do in future if I become president of this country.
A lot of leaders talk about change from the outside after being on the inside.
Yes.
What makes that different for you? Because sometimes
I've been a change agent, Janet, from within government. When I was appointed CSICT, I embarked on a radical digitalization program. Yeah. In the face of resistance to change. And my record is there for everybody to see. When I got into government, we only had 350 government services digitalized. Yeah. By the time I left that ministry, we had over 20,000 services digitalized. This is one of the most transformational initiatives we have ever undertaken as government since independence. And I was leading from the top. Yeah.
I still...
in the face of resistance to change.
No, I almost still want to go back to Eric's, speak about the frustrations, because to say I want to do this means this was being done poorly, this was being done without proper oversight, this I didn't agree with, this frustrated me, this drove me to want to resign. Speak to the deeper frustrations that have led you to be here today.
I won't talk about frustrations. It is
unapea mtu kazi, you're like, wacha tu nijifanyie.
It's a vote of confidence in myself. I see myself as an agent of change and an agent of necessity in view of the prevailing circumstances. We need transformational leadership in this country. And drawing from the lessons I've learned, the existential experience during my stay in the public sector, I've been all over Kenya, either inspecting projects or implementing projects. And Kenyans have been telling me that, look, Eliud, you guys talk about several programs that you are implementing, but we don't feel it in terms of impact. There is no money in our pockets. There is no food on the table. So this is the contradiction that Kenyans are grappling with.
Right.
And this is what I want to come out and sort out. And that's why I'm saying that deliberately and consciously, as an agent of necessity, I intend to run for the presidency of this country so that I can lead Kenya's third and final liberation, which in my view is economic liberation.
Okay, so talk about, let me now rephrase it. Fine, an Eliud Owalo presidency,
Yes.
what economic interventions are happening immediately to stabilize, to rebuild, to...
The economy.
Yeah.
The first thematic area I will address is taxation. I want to bring down income tax from 35% to 20%. I want to bring down VAT from 16% to 10%. I want to completely do away with digital tax. I believe we can get that money from elsewhere as opposed to levying tax on digital appliances and equipment. Because one of the thematic areas I really want to pursue with zeal is turning Kenya into a real digital economy. I want to do away with the housing tax. I want to bring down housing tax from 2.5 to 0.5%. Tax should also be predictable. Yeah, people need to have some predictability in the fiscal regime for purposes of planning, more so from a business perspective. We do not want to. We need to have a situation where every now more often we keep on varying the tax level. There needs to be some predictability for purposes of planning by the private sector and by business enterprises. So taxation is one area where I want to eliminate punitive taxation. Kenyans feel that our tax regime today is punitive. It is not business friendly. And also augmenting that, I want to address issues of debt. As we operate today, we are using debt as a revenue-raising measure. Debt should not be utilized as a revenue-raising measure. Why we go for debt is because the level of expenditure exceeds the level of revenue.
Yeah.
Under my regime as president, I would not have any budget deficit. I want to have zero budget deficit. To the extent that what we raise by way of domestic revenue is what we spend, both for recurrent and development expenditure. And if we are to go the route of external debt, then that debt should only be sought and applied to projects that can finance themselves and repay the what? The debt. We should not be utilizing debt today and then making it become a burden to future generations. That is lopsided thinking.
With the current debt burden that we have,
standing at about 12 trillion?
Right.
Yes.
That's the first charge, goes to pay debts, pensions, whatever we collect, right?
Yes.
What we are left with is barely enough to operate the budget, the national budget.
Yeah, but you see, how many people are paying tax today in Kenya? About 9 million. Out of a possible about 35 million Kenyans who have already attained the age of 18 and could be involved in gainful economic activity. So what do we need to do? Logic dictates that we widen the tax base. And the only way to widen the tax base is by bringing in more people into the income bracket. We have got a substantial proportion of Kenyans today who are not involved in gainful economic activity. And that is the direction that we need to target primarily by ensuring that resources are allocated to those functions that will re-engineer the value chains so that we get more Kenyans into the income bracket. We have got women who are capable of doing businesses. They don't have access to credit. We have got youth involved in the Juakali sector. They do not have the money to start businesses. Instead, we are resorting to white-collar jobs which are non-existent. There is a lot of potential for our young generation in the digital space and even in the Juakali sector that if they were facilitated, courtesy of an enabling economic environment, we will bring in more Kenyans into the income bracket and by extension the tax bracket. So what is the end result? The impact would be that at the current prevailing tax levels, we should be able to collect more revenue without raising taxes because more people will be brought into the income bracket. I'm looking at closing the deficit between the 9 million Kenyans who are currently paying tax and the 35 million Kenyans who are capable of paying tax.
Right.
Bring these people into the tax bracket. Maintain the current or even reduce drastically the current tax levels, generate adequate domestic revenue, sort out the external debt, finance both your recurrent and development expenditure using internally generated resources, so long as you seal out the revenue leakages where we are today losing also an astronomical about 2 billion shillings per day.
You know, the issues that you're raising, Eliud, you know, they sound very good.
Yeah.
And any other candidate who wants to be president will come and touch on these issues. It's a how that is important. How
I'm not any other candidate, Eric.
Your proposal of how is what I'm saying, is what distinguishes one candidate to the other from the other.
Yeah.
But the bigger question in the public today is Eliud Owalo really interested in becoming president? Am I in mchezo ya town? Are you William Ruto's mole to come and just scatter the pigeons?
Split a few votes, a few...
You know...
And what's the long game here?
Eric, my track record speaks for itself. I've had that narrative being peddled around that perhaps Eliud Owalo is in connivance with President Ruto for some ping-pong political game. That is not me. I'm very decisive, I'm honest. I come from a very religious background, by the way. What I say is what I do. In 2019, when I decided to work with William Ruto, most Kenyans thought that the Azimio presidential candidate then was actually ahead of the pack and was likely to win. But I went against the grain. And I did this publicly. And I worked with Ruto 3 years, between 2019 to 2022. And I was a key cog in his presidential campaign. I did that publicly. I'll give you another instance. At one point, I wanted to run for Kibra parliamentary seat. I went and stood on an ANC ticket when conventional wisdom had it that was a predominantly ODM zone. So I'm somebody who is a risk taker, very decisive, but I will not work with somebody in secrecy. Today, I have resigned from government to pursue this presidential ambition. If I wanted to work with William Ruto towards 2027, why would I then resign from the upper echelons of his government? Why don't I stay put, work with him up to 2027, campaign for him in 2027? Why do I need to work with him in secrecy? So this narrative that is being peddled to me is illogical, it is incorrigible, it does not make sense.
So you actually mean it?
I mean it. I mean this for the long haul.
You want to become the president. So then, just spill the beans then.
Yeah.
So what's not working in this government?
Yeah.
I mean, you, like you've told us, and I know this because I've interviewed you before, you were very central to designing the William Ruto presidential campaign.
Yes.
The plan, as the William Ruto Manifesto is called, has very many elements of Eliud Owalo in it.
Yes.
He appointed you as a minister in his cabinet.
Yes.
When he dismissed you as a minister, he quickly took you up again to serve close to him as advisor and then as deputy chief
Informed
of staff.
by my proven skills, competencies, and capabilities.
Right.
Yeah.
But today, that's Eliud Owalo, who formed and ran this government, has walked out of that government, and he says, this government does not deserve to come back. I deserve to come back.
Right.
Now,
so what is it that has so frustrated you with the William Ruto administration that you walked out and said, you know what, I am the solution? William Ruto is not the solution. Eliud Owalo.
You should get a second
even
term.
your proposals are indictments of the current regime, if you're being honest. If the first thing you go after is tax, and you're saying, you know what, let's reduce the tax.
I just talked about tax. I was still going to talk about
tax, there's debt, and all the others.
Yes, those
what
are
is
indictments.
What's wrong?
You know, there's a complete divergence between planning and implementation. You may have a good plan, but you face challenges in what? In implementation. As you start to implement your plan, certain issues emerge, intervening variables come into play. which frustrate implementation of that plan. But to sort out some of these things, you require transformational leadership, you require decisive leadership at the very top. And I'll just give you a case in point. Conflict of interest. Yeah? In fact, in my last functional domain where I was handling delivery of government projects, one of the greatest challenges that I came to face with is conflict of interest. You have individuals in government.
Eliud, sorry, I think your phone is correct.
Sorry. You have individuals in government holding key positions in government, either as an accounting officer, procurement officer, or finance officer. They connive, they go and form their dummy company out there. Yeah, tenders are floated. Yeah, they award themselves the tenders through proxy. Yeah. Now, having awarded themselves the tenders, you realize that when it comes to implementation, because of conflict of interest, there is a challenge. There's a challenge in the sense that at times, having paid themselves by way of proxy, those monies are diverted to other activities as opposed to the project himself. The project ends up stalling. When Eliud Owalo goes to the ground, in Kakamega, for example, and then the locals tell me that, look, this project has stalled, it is not moving. And the contractor is telling us that this project belongs to so-and-so in government. And he believes it's untouchable. And I'll tell them that I don't care how that contractor came to get the job. What my concern is implementation. And either the contractor pursues the project to a logical conclusion or face the consequences. That is one of the most prominent challenges in implementation of projects. Conflict of interest. The other one is outright corruption. There's too much pilferage of resources in government, by those in positions of authority. And this is one of the areas which I really want to address. One, courtesy of digitalization, I want to make sure that I digitalize everything, all the aspects of government, if I become the president of this country, end to end, starting with procurement and also moving to spending. In procurement, people should be able to know if a tender is floated for either supply of goods or services, the terms of reference should be clear to everybody. It should be posted online. Let people bid, let everyone know what every prospective service provider has scored in the technical proposal, who is ranked number 1, number 2, number 3, and it is public, and people see that it is justified based on the terms of references that was floated. And then you evaluate the financial proposals, determine the aggregate, and people truly see that whoever is awarded a given tender deserve to win that tender. And then follow up that. Let me finish. This is important. Follow up that with end-to-end digital dashboard, a digitalized dashboard of the implementation. People need to see the progress of that of implementation. Is the project being pursued to a logical conclusion? When it comes to payment, there is need for accountability of each and every cent. We need to have value for what? Money. That is one of the avenues of sealing revenue leakages corruption, and doing away with digital
Eliud,
corruption.
The last time you were here, the last time you were here, you had just published a scorecard for the administration. And the things that you're saying are the things that you're committing to actually implement. So it's either you're telling us that you have been frustrated from implementing those, right? That EGP, for example, which was a solution, is not a solution. Or you're telling us that the buck stops with the president. I'm saying the buck stops to the president, and all this pilferage is because it ends up at the president, and the president is not transformational or decisive.
You know, there's a lot of resistance to change in the public sector, in government, and it requires wherewithal, leadership, decisive leadership at the top to rein in on this resistance. And I believe, based on my track record, that I can fight corruption if I'm given the opportunity. Kenyans give me the opportunity.
And William Ruto is unable.
I'm not saying that. I leave that to Kenyans to judge.
No, we are asking.
No.
You've been there.
I leave that for Kenyans to judge.
You are coming to tell us this is the job that I was supposed to do. I did not do it. I want you to elevate me to the higher office, to remove the current occupier of that office who had given me the job to do. So you're basically telling us I was unable to do my job because my boss...
I believe I can do it better.
Because my boss cannot do it as well.
I believe I can do it better. And I want to qualify this with my track record in government. When I was CS for ICT, that ministry was voted by none other than Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission as the least corrupt ministry in government under my leadership and tutelage. I'm somebody who is action-oriented and somebody who knows how to put in place performance management frameworks and hold people accountable by way of results.
And instead of rewarding you,
how
the
to
president
fight
fired you
resistance
from
to
this.
change. Come again?
And instead of rewarding you and acknowledging that you have actually done so well that you're being recognized by a constitutional commission.
You see, it is the prerogative.
Your boss fired you from it.
It is the prerogative of the...
Maybe that's why you're so angry that you...
It is the
actually want to remove you
prerogative
from office.
of... By the way, I came into public sector to serve. Okay? I came into the public sector to serve, not in anticipation of capital gain. If it was in the converse, I would have stayed in the public sector, the private sector, where I was much better off. Before I moved into government, I had already established myself, informed by 23 years extensive experience as a consultant, and I cut an edge in the market, in the operational environment, as one of the best, the most sought after strategies in Africa. So I was much better off in the private sector. But I transitioned into the public sector to serve, and I believe that my track record in government is there for everybody to see. I have walked out of government with the credentials of a performer, a go-getter, a results-oriented person, a workaholic, and a true agent for change.
All right, let's take a
Right,
break. You wanted to ask something?
No. I'm
You'll
just
come back
saying
and...
the wanting to indict without indicting. You have to pick a side.
You have to pick a side.
You have to pick a side.
And hopefully you'll pick that side when we come back. So just be very clear about it. But we are hosting Eliud Owalo. He wants to be the next president of Kenya. He'll tell us more about that after the break. It's coming up to 8:30. Hello. Quite a lot of feedback online. We'll see if we can quickly go through it. Alex Moyere is like, what has Owalo said about tear gassing of a church? Rhetoric isn't enough. Has he sued the state? Charles Ndungo, we as Kenyans are slowly but surely learning a tough lesson. Words are sweet. Actions are what really matter. And then having overstayed in your position...
I thought syllabus imesonga.
I think, it's the theory. Then now you're like, Charles goes on to say, during your tenure as an advisor to the president, did you advise him to stop lying to the populace? Okay, then he goes on to say, being evasive is another red flag. Just answer Eric's question as asked if you want to gain the confidence of Kenyans. Then we have Anthony Mbogwa. Resigning as an advisor was an easy decision because there's really nothing that advisors do. It's why the courts suspended some of their salaries. Grace Grayson Music, you believe you can do it better? Yes, you were there and you couldn't bring the changes back then. What will we now expect if we elect you as the president? Will there really be any change? Which is sort of a reframing of what we'd asked, like what makes your presidency different?
Different from others.
Yes.
And just for clarification, Eliud, you are deputy chief of staff.
Not advisor.
That's a public service position.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not among those that have been deemed unconstitutional.
Because then one would argue that I resigned because I knew these positions will be done away with.
So this is a public service position.
Yes,
that's
please.
Recognized even in the public service.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before that, you were cabinet secretary.
Yes, please.
Which again is a constitutional position.
Yes.
All right. So then, so these are the questions that come in for you to respond to. If you believe you can do it better, you were there and you could not bring changes back then, what will make us believe that?
He said his
I've said I need to be in an ultimate position of authority.
That you are not able to do it.
I need to be in an ultimate position of authority to bring the radical change that we require in the public sector. That is one of the reasons why I'm running for president. I believe I'm decisive. I believe I'm results-oriented. I believe an agent of real change. I want us to do politics unusual as opposed to business as usual, and this requires transformational leadership. And while still on this, you cut me short when I was talking about corruption. One of the things I'm going to do immediately once I'm elected president is to reopen all mega corruption cases that we have witnessed in this country since 2010, within the period of the current constitutional dispensation. We have so many cases of mega corruption which have not been conclusively sorted out to the satisfaction of Kenyans. I want us to reopen these cases so that impartial investigations are undertaken. Those found culpable should not just go to jail within the confines of the Constitution, but we need to go a step further and undertake forensic investigations so that we trace the assets of all those who have looted public resources, whether those assets are within or beyond the Kenyan borders, and seize those assets and let these assets revert back to the Kenyan public. Yeah.
Why do you think they've never been addressed before? You're saying the investigations haven't been as thorough, so
there's too much political meddling. We do not allow independent institutions to do their work. Everything that we do, it needs to be in full conformity to the rule of law. Should be aligned to the dictates of the Constitution. But we have look, the DCI, the EACC, the Auditor General, are those institutions which are supposed to be independent operating without political influence? The answer is in the negative. And I'm saying that if I'm at the helm of government, I will ensure that independent institutions are allowed to do their work expeditiously in full conformity to their functional mandates without fear or favor, without any interference from any quarter. And I'll ensure that the doctrine of separation of powers between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary is not just there in theory, but is also actualized in practice.
Eliud.
It's the indictment without indicting. But go on, Eric.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Because I want to say, Eliud, you have actually occupied the highest decision-making seats
Yes.
at the table.
Yes.
As a cabinet secretary,
Yeah.
this is the principal decision-making organ
Yeah.
of government.
Yeah.
As deputy chief of staff,
Yeah.
you're basically deputy head of public service.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You are the one to see that the public service is delivering as it
Yeah.
ought to. In fact, you are in charge of delivery.
Yeah.
But you're saying all these things were not happening.
It is
Give us
contingent.
examples where
All
you
this,
saw something happen, you took action, and the frustration that you faced in that action not coming to fruition. For example, the political frustration of independent offices in fighting corruption. What did you, as deputy head of public service in this country, do, and what did you face?
As and when such challenges arise, it's incumbent upon a holder of an office like the ones I've been holding to advise the relevant authorities. You may advise, but you are not in position, in control as to whether the advice that you have given is taken or implemented.
So that's why I'm asking a direct one. Because you've given us the example. Since 2010 to now, there have been many mega corruption incidences in this country.
Yes.
Reported, investigations commenced, investigations not concluded, stalled, withdrawn. And you call that a result of political interference.
Yes, I'll give you several
Did you
examples.
advise give us an example where you said, I did this in my capacity as deputy head of public service. I faced frustration. I went to my boss and I explained this is the issue and this is the action he took or did not take.
I don't want to do anything which is outside my oath of secrecy.
You want us to judge you
Yeah.
by your track record.
Yes.
We are questioning your track record.
But my track record is evident. I've
not.
told you about my track record in private sector, my track record as CSICT. When I was CSICT, I transformed a moribund ministry that was more like a department in government.
Corruption,
You're
Eliud.
saying-
Fighting corruption.
Right.
Yeah.
As deputy head of public service and principal advisor to the president on the running of government. What did you do? What did you not do?
You're saying you will reopen mega corruption cases. What did you
do? Where I came across such challenges, I did the relevant advisory to the relevant government entities who are supposed to be charged with the responsibility of investigations and also prosecutions. And that is where my functional mandate stops.
Okay, and then what did they do?
And that is why I'm saying that we need
Because
leadership.
the relevant agencies are few. I mean, we know them. It's the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the National Police Service with the DCI, the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Asset Recovery Agency. Those are the ones that deal with corruption matters in this country.
But these
so
entities,
you wrote to them.
No, these entities, in a nutshell, they are not operating independently. They are operating at the whims of the political and dictates of the political class. There's too much political interference in the operations of this organization.
The head of them being the president.
I'm saying leadership in government is espoused at the top.
The head of them being the president.
The
because
top is
if
the
Eliud
president.
Owalo became the president, things would be different.
Is what you're
So
saying.
what did this
I want to
president
do
not
things
do?
differently.
What has this president not done?
What I'm saying is that we need independent institutions. We need to
He
create
has
an
compromised
enabling-
the independence of institutions? What has the president?
The institutions today are not operating independently. There's too much political interference. You know, government is a whole ecosystem.
True.
It is not one individual. And Eliud Owalo was also part of it. True. Okay? So it is a whole ecosystem. It is not one individual. As to who has interfered with the independence of those institutions, I leave that to Kenyans to judge. Yeah. But our history is awash with examples where these institutions have been...
You can't have your cake and eat it too. Yeah. You're asking for votes. You're asking for people to come out and to entrust you with their future, with the next 5, maybe 10 years of this country. Yet you're not willing to say where the compromises are from a position of knowledge, from a position of experience.
I want Kenyans,
this is where the problem is. This is who has captured this institution. But you want us somehow to trust you. And
I want Kenyans to appreciate me for who I am. I don't do things the same way that other people
Remember,
do.
Kenyans have a trust deficit
with
leadership.
Yes.
So not naming it in many ways can further that trust deficit.
No, Janet, I've worked with top politicians in this country. If you look at my track record, you'll realize that in the year 2013, I was the head of the CORD presidential campaign. Yeah? Head of presidential campaign and chief campaign manager to the then CORD presidential candidate. Yep. At that point in time, I worked with Raila Odinga, I worked with Kalonzo Musyoka, I worked with Moses Wetangula as co-principals, okay, as their chief executive. When I left that axis, I did not run my mouth, go all over the place, talking about deficiencies of those individuals. I had a stint in ANC, and I worked with Musalia Mudavadi, and I became one of his closest associates and advisors. When I moved from that axis, I did not go out bad-mouthing Musalia Mudavadi. I've worked with Ruto for the past 5 years. I'm not about to talk about the deficiencies of Ruto. I'm not going to do that.
Listen,
what I will be
that's
doing,
not exactly Eliud. You know, you come from a very religious homestead, right? Your family has been at the helm.
It's
of
just not
judge,
my style,
right?
Eric.
You are an honest man.
Yes.
And in your honesty, you're telling us that having advised and brought this government into office, having served in this government for the last 3 years, I want to take over from this government. Okay? You're basically telling us this government is not delivering as I feel it ought to deliver.
Absolutely. And, that's true.
And not just that it stems from the leader of the government, the president. And that's why I want to remove William Ruto and occupy the head of government position as Eliud Owalo. Okay?
Eric.
So you're telling us that having worked on this government and in this government, it is not delivering. And the reason is the president. That's why you want to remove him and to occupy that seat. Are you seeing that logic?
No.
Because it's very logical. I mean, we are honest people here. So we are not bad-mouthing the person of William Ruto. You are giving us the shortcomings of the presidency of William Ruto.
The shortcomings of government.
Headed by
the presidency inclusive. And I want to use the lessons I've learned to inform what I'm going to do when I'm elected president.
You're also positioning yourself outside of sort of like powerful coalitions, for example. Is that ideological? Is it what inspired that?
I want to do issue-based politics, Janet. I don't subscribe to the school of thought of coalition building based on personal political interest, ethnic conglomerations. I really want to drive an issue-based campaign with a view to addressing the real challenges which are facing the common Kenyan. If I'm to work with any other politician, it will be based on a double coincidence of alignment to that vision of addressing the fundamental challenges facing Kenyans, more so from an economic perspective. So I will not be inclined to getting into coalitions based on tribes, based on personal interest, as the case has been since the advent of multi-party
politics. So if they
politics.
invite you as united opposition and say, join us, we are collectively trying to...
It should be based on what we want to do. It should be based on what we want to do for Kenyans. But it should not be based on sharing positions. This has happened. We have done this historically, yet Kenyans are still facing the same challenges.
Let me read some feedback on YouTube, for example. Okay. During your tenure as advisor, I think this one had been read earlier, not advisor.
I think let's correct.
Yeah,
I was not an
deputy
advisor.
chief of staff.
Yeah.
Let me just leave that one. So being evasive is a red flag. Answer Eric's questions as asked if you want to gain the confidence of Kenyans. Henry Kerongo, that was Charles Ndungu. Henry Kerongo says, Owalo is doing in Nyanza what Moses Kuria is doing in Central. That goes back to now the vote splitting argument. Why didn't you advise Kasongo about the same? That's Black B. Triple M says, I think we know how this movie will end. Eliud will lose in 2027, but the way things are looking, since the opposition is not serious, Ruto will win, and Eliud returns to government for national unity. Okay. Al Skater says, he's avoiding your questions. Charles Ndungu says, you're not fit to be president because you're evasive. Point blank would have earned you points. Sasa imeingia, okay, vitu zingine. James Njuguna says, this guy has been given a budget to divide Luo votes. When asked where Kasongo has failed, he trembles. Someone is asking about your party. For you to run government business, you need majority in parliament. How will you attain that? Does he have the financial muscle to run a presidential campaign? So a lot of people will answer the question about financial muscle and, of course, getting a full house for you to be able to effectively run the nation. But a lot of people are just buying into this idea that you are there to split votes because, again, of this evasiveness around the accountability questions. And it will continue to look like that. So if indeed you are serious about running for president and you do want to gain people's confidence, you have to be clear about who you're indicting because you served under them and why you want to take their position. You have to be point blank about it.
Okay.
Or the other assumption, reasonable assumption to make is that you are in cahoots and this is just a ploy to split
let me tell you something. One, on the issue of finances for running the presidency, I'll run a modest, inclusive, participatory campaign, largely owned by and driven by Kenyans themselves. I've headed a presidential campaign, and I tell you without fear of contradiction that you can have money, colossal sums of money, but still lose a presidential campaign. I believe that in my campaign, money will be a facilitator for logistical purposes, as opposed to the common denominator on the basis of which I should be voted on the basis of how much money I have. So that really is not a worry to me. Number two, how would splitting votes help William Ruto, or help me for that matter? I want Kenyans to start believing that I'm in this game for the long haul. I'm going the full hog as far as the presidential race in 2027 is concerned. I don't see the rationale of walking out of William Ruto's government to work with him from outside. It would have been easier to work with him from inside. Why do I leave government and then come back after 2027 if he won the elections and occupy the same positions I've held before? It just doesn't make sense. It is not illogical. It is incoherent. It is incorrigible. It doesn't make sense.
Let me give you the conspiracy logic.
Yes.
Right? So the conspiracy logic here is you serve at the pleasure of the president. He can assign you and reassign you. Your current assignment is this one that you're performing now.
But I'm not. He cannot assign me.
Your current assignment is.
I'm not his employee as we speak, so he cannot assign me a duty.
Eliud, or maybe actually not even your current assignment. Your current assignment, as you advised him. You're the one who was a strategic advisor to his campaign. How are you going to get the votes to win the election?
Yes.
So you've gone back to him and told him how you're going to win this vote.
Yes.
Raila is out of the picture.
Yes.
Now we have Nyanza.
Yes.
Open. Now not everybody in Nyanza is going to vote for you, assuming that. Right? How about we make sure that not everybody in Nyanza votes for these other opposition guys who are going to be the closer contenders? How about we then split it? We have seen it. Moi campaigns used to be split the vote, pita katikati yao.
How does splitting the vote in Raila's base work to the advantage of William Ruto? I thought now that he's working with ODM, he would want to have all the votes with him.
Yeah, but he's also pragmatic enough to know that not all votes will be with him.
Let me tell you something, Eric. All this doesn't make sense. The narrative just doesn't add up. The narrative that I'm working with Ruto doesn't add up. In the prevailing circumstances, perhaps the only argument you would advance, ceteris paribus, is that William Ruto is in cahoots with Eliud Owalo, so that towards 2027, William Ruto will step down for Eliud Owalo to become the president of this country. That would make some sense. Anything in the converse is contradictory and it is negatory.
If you have to give the current administration a score, 1 to 10, President William Ruto and the government of the day, score 1 to 10.
1 being lowest,
yes,
and least performing.
To be sure.
Perhaps
And
5,
10 being very...
5, because we had a plan, Based on implementation of that plan, we still have gaps in implementation, The government still has gaps in implementation based on feedback from the public and also based on evidence as far as implementation of projects and programs is concerned. And I've told you the challenges that we have been facing in government when it comes to implementation of projects. And I believe that Kenyans need to give me the opportunity to start off from where we have reached, so that I fill the gaps in implementation of some of those programs.
So those gaps, are they due to external factors or due to internal factors?
There are intervening factors in play, things like conflict of interest, things like political meddling, things like corruption. But I also believe that all this is incumbent upon transformational leadership. And that is what I want to offer.
Which you currently lack.
I want to offer that.
Eliud Owalo is the only one
I'm
who
the
would
real
offer.
agent of change.
At that ballot in 2027,
Yes.
Eliud Owalo would be the only one who is
And then let me also tell you something.
Transformative and decisive.
Kenyans, I've talked to so many people, And I've been around for a while. I've talked to so many people. And Kenyans are telling me that, look, these legacy politicians are taking us around in a vicious circle that perpetuates poverty. We do not need a politician at the helm. We need a manager who will take care of Kenyans' resources, which have been looted systematically since independence. We need somebody who believes in good governance. We need somebody who is a performer, a technocrat perhaps, as opposed to a politician, and somebody with a proven track record of delivery, informed by functional mandates that he has held. And they believe that I fit the bill.
And they believe that currently what we have is not enough. Do you regret working to bring this government to office and working in this government?
I'll go back to what I said in 2019 when I joined the Ruto axis. And I did say at that point in time that as Eliud Owalo, I do not subscribe to the school of thought that we should bring in together prominent families, ganging them up, to fight the rest of Kenyans. That is what was happening at that point in time, and I'll never subscribe to it. The prominent families who felt that they owned Kenya and they wanted to take over leadership of this country. I don't subscribe to that school of thought. And that is why at that point in time, I decided to work with another humble human being like myself, whom I felt would represent the aspirations of the ordinary Kenyans, the Kenyan masses. That was one of the reasons which I gave when I started working with When I started working with Ruto. I do not regret the decision I made. I believe that it was for a good cause, and if I had the opportunity to make that decision again, holding all factors constant, I would do the same. What was happening at that point in time was unacceptable. That prominent families sit somewhere in a boardroom and decide that they are going to share power among themselves in total disregard to the will and aspirations of the rest of Kenyans. That is unacceptable, and I'll not go that route.
What's your...
Are we back there?
If we are back there, then I'm not going to be part of it.
No, from your assessment, are we back there? Are we back to dynasties coming together?
Regrettably, that is what is happening. And I've chosen to walk out. You know, Eric, look at me for what I am. Today, everybody is trooping towards William Ruto. I've decided to walk out. In 2019, when I decided to work with William Ruto, everybody was trooping towards the Azimio coalition. I'm always guided by my conscience. And I do my maths on the table and I listen to what Kenyans are saying. Believe you me, just the same way I did not go wrong in 2022, I will not go wrong in 2027.
So William Ruto has basically betrayed the cause. He was working against these big families, the dynasty, working for the hustler. But now you feel that he's opened the door for the dynasties to come and dine with him. So he's betraying the cause.
That is the monument of inconsistency and contradictions we are dealing with.
You know, somebody...
It's a yes or no?
I know.
It's a yes.
It's a yes. It's a yes. It's a roundabout.
That's a definite yes.
I hear it, but I still feel like
you want a clear... Yes or no?
Okay, but go on.
No. I was just going to say I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody listening and watching, and it really just sounds like a script that's been said over and over again. I'm the man to make the change.
Yeah.
I won't be co-opted.
Yeah.
I won't be pulled into dynasties.
Yeah.
I won't be brought into coalitions because everybody seems to be honking onto the tribal and ethnic card.
Yeah.
But I think as somebody here is saying, he can't, okay, I think Mariam and Eric have actually speaking to this. Sorry, you don't sound convincing. And I'm sure it's to a lot of others too. I like him, but he should simply clarify and openly share his thoughts on poor public healthcare services, poor education, his 4-year plan to change and improve this, but he's not convincing. Mariam, don't let him get away from answering the scorecard. He said 5.
He said 5, yeah,
okay.
he did.
No, I'm just grappling with people are going to struggle to internalize this because it sounds like every other person who's harping on saying, I'm the man.
Education, if I may touch on that.
For about a minute.
There are sectoral interventions that I would want to quickly also introduce.
Okay.
Under my government, we are going to have free primary education. Yeah, Mwai Kibaki did it. I don't see why we cannot do it. We are going to have free day secondary education. And we are going to have free medical care in all public hospitals. So long as we seal the revenue leakages, bring in more Kenyans into the income bracket, we have got the capacity to mobilize adequate domestic revenue to finance that.
In like 30 seconds, there was a question on how you plan on having a majority in parliament.
You see, I'm going to drive an issue-based campaign. Kenyans from all walks of life today identify with my political orientation. That we are tired of retrogressive politics. We need issue-based politics anchored on economic emancipation, the third liberation which I want to lead. And so many people, as we speak, 346 politicians, aspiring politicians have reached out to me to work with me in this new political dispensation. And I believe I'll have the critical mass to push the legislative agenda, both at the county assembly level and also the National Assembly. Yeah.
Did launching your foundation give you this extra boost of confidence to say...
Not really. That is...
it's separate.
That's a separate entity which should have a life of its own. It should not be brought into this political space. Yeah, and that is something that should outgrow. The foundation should outgrow Eliud Owalo and get a life of its own, even beyond my own existence. Yeah. And that is the vision I have for that foundation.
All right.
Yeah.
Eliud, let's take a quick break. It's coming to a minute to 9 a.m. We've got to take a break. We'll probably have you just for the final conversation about 15 minutes before we let you go and our next guest comes in. But Eliud Owalo is the former Deputy Chief of Staff working in the government. He resigned so that he can pursue his ambition to be the next president of the Republic of Kenya. We're asking him why and what do you want to do should we give you that office. Keep it here for that. It's 9 a.m. Though, Mariam, we still are playing a critical role, for example, in the DRC, even in the Sudan conversation, even in South Sudan. It's maybe that's where Eliud Owalo comes in. Transformational, decisive leadership.
The word transformation.
The transformational leadership that sees how do we broker meaningful, lasting peace in our region. Right? Among those, actually, let's talk about our foreign policy. As president, what is it that you would do so that our foreign policy, like Mariam is saying, we actually get the respect that we deserve?
Yeah, one, we need to recognize the fact that Kenya is a sovereign country. So the interest of Kenya as a country comes first. But we also do not need to interfere with the internal affairs in equal measure of other countries. Okay, so I will be guided by my government will be guided by a non-aligned foreign policy, not interfering with the internal interests of the country, other countries, but also promoting the interests of Kenyans, more so from a trade perspective. We have been having a lot of trade imbalance where the level of imports so far exceeds the level of exports. I would drive a foreign policy agenda that facilitates the exports of Kenyan produce so that we can enhance the level of our foreign exchange reserves. Yeah.
I know in just a few moments we'll tackle some of the other agenda items that are priority to you. When everything was happening in 2024, the human rights violations that we saw witnessed in this country with abductions and a lot of people dying, publicly, was there any sort of like firm statement you made? If not, what were you observing that maybe perhaps made you realize you also need to have a different approach when it comes to human rights in this country?
Actually, in that space, if you ask me, some of the things that we have witnessed in the space of human rights is unacceptable. Look at that young man, Ojwang, who was picked from Homa Bay, brought here, killed. To date, we have not seen somebody in a high position of responsibility being indicted, courtesy of that. That is unacceptable. We cannot have that level of impunity, okay? Issues to do with, for example, police storming churches, yeah? Throwing tear gas at people when they are in church. Our constitution, Article 34 and 35 of the constitution, espouses that we have got freedom of worship and also freedom of assembly and freedom of association. What's wrong with having Kenyans converge in church or even for a political event? That is enshrined in the constitution. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. We must conform to the rule of law. Everything must be in full conformity to the rule of law. And officers in government need to know that however long it takes, one day they will be held to account for their acts of omission and commission if those actions are in contravention to the constitution. Yeah.
Take us through government, because none of us have had the privilege as you
Yes.
of serving in government at the highest level.
Yes.
And in the cabinet.
Yes.
Such matters, are they discussed in cabinet? When you see, for example, the June protests, people pushing back against the finance bill and outpouring, and then there is the pushback by the administration on using force and tear gas. Are such matters discussed in cabinet, and what happens in such meetings?
No, you know, we have got the National Security Advisory Council, which discusses all matters security. And based on deliberations at such meetings, then cabinet can be appraised. Yeah.
So when they come to cabinet, how do those conversations run? Do people actually sit there as leaders of the country, or do they sit there as leaders of political factions of the country?
You know, the cabinet is supposed to be apolitical, yeah, in the sense that you have committed and you have sworn by the Bible that you are going to serve the interests of all Kenyans, devoid of partisan politics, yeah. So any issues which come to cabinet have to be discussed as objectively as possible, in total disregard to the political inclinations of members of the cabinet. Yeah.
You know, you've heard from a former member of the cabinet,
Yeah.
Justin Muturi.
Yeah.
And he says sometimes you'd sit in cabinet and a conversation begins and then it's taken over by, say, the president or those who are reading from the same script as the president. And those who had a contrary opinion suddenly find themselves muzzled.
But you need to
out.
fight for your space.
All right.
If you can't fight for your space and if you can't speak your mind, then you have got no business being in that cabinet.
So were you able to do that?
No. Eliud Owalo is somebody who speaks his mind. In all circumstances, not just in cabinet, I'll always speak my mind. And that is something that I will not deviate from that. I always speak my mind, whether what I say is palatable or not.
And when you spoke your mind, for example, on the issues of observance of the rule of law, fighting corruption, making sure there's good governance in the country, what did you receive what was the reception of the fellow cabinet members and the chair of the cabinet?
You know, Eric, that question now you are asking is difficult to prosecute properly, because now we are getting into an area of the deliberations of cabinet which is supposed to be secret. I find it difficult now to answer that.
No.
No. You know, I'm not supposed to
like
be
a
relieving.
broader picture and say.
No, I'm not supposed to be relieving the secrets of the proceedings of cabinet, because I swore, yeah, to that effect. I should not be doing that.
Eliud, it's not really that secret, because after every cabinet meeting, we get a brief.
You get a brief, yes.
Of the decisions that were made.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to tell us who says what.
It depends. You see,
when you raise
if you are a member of the cabinet, and you are sure about yourself from a technical position, that you have got the skills, competencies, and capabilities to prosecute the agenda of cabinet, you should be able to speak your mind. Yeah? And that is what Eliud Owalo did when he was in cabinet. I always spoke my mind objectively. Yeah.
And you are allowed space to do that.
Oh yes, it's an open. I mean, you are given the opportunity to give your comments on any issues which is on the agenda.
Were you also able to speak about a fellow cabinet member whom you suspect or you have seen is actually involved in breaking the rule of law or going against the oath of office?
If it is on the agenda of cabinet, then you discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm asking that because among the things that you're saying you'd like to do as a president are issues that have been there in the public. For example, you've said reduce taxation. Issues of taxation have been there. You know, they've been public
But we need
conversations.
the will.
Should we reduce the tax? Issues of having a balanced budget, not having a budget deficit, running on budget deficit, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So, if as member of the cabinet these issues were discussed, why is it that they were not implemented? And what is it that you would do as chair
not talking.
of the cabinet?
What I've shared with you
chair
here.
of the cabinet, when such proposals come, how will you make sure that they are received and implemented?
What I've shared with you is not what was discussed in cabinet when Eliud Owalo was there. I'm telling you what I will do when I'm the CEO of the Republic of Kenya. Yeah? I'll reduce income tax from 35% to 20%. That was never discussed in cabinet. I'll reduce VAT from 16% to 10%. That was never discussed in cabinet. I will do away with digital tax. This cabinet, the current cabinet where I was actually introduced digital tax, I'm saying we will do away with it. I'm saying I will facilitate the reduction of housing levy from 2.5% to 0.5%. So I'm telling you progressively what I'll do when I'm elected as the President of the Republic of Kenya, not what was discussed in cabinet when I was in that cabinet.
We're almost completely out of time. But one of the things that plagues us, even economy-wise, is spending bills.
Yes.
Huge, massive problem.
Yes.
At the time you were leaving as a CS for ICT,
yes.
What did the ministry owe in pending bills to various suppliers?
First, the media houses about 1.3 billion to start with, about 1.3 billion shillings. We were paying progressively. Yeah.
What was the plan there?
The plan was that all those bills, will be captured in the pending bills, and then once the pending bills committee verified all these bills, which I believe now has been done, they will be aggregated together with other pending bills, and then it goes to the cabinet because there had to be a special budgetary provision for it. It goes to the cabinet for approval to facilitate the payment of those pending bills at one go. And I believe that's work in progress. At the time I left government, that was the status.
Okay, were there any verified bills that hadn't been paid?
Verified in what sense? Well, because there was no budgetary provision, all those pending bills had to be taken to cabinet. There has to be a cabinet memo developed through the CS Treasury. Then it is taken to cabinet. Cabinet approves it, and then the amount of money is captured in the supplementary budget to facilitate the payment.
All right,
because there was no budgetary provision for the spending bills.
All right. Let's end it there with Eliud Owalo, presidential aspirant. Hopefully we'll continue the conversation and we'll do a part 2, talk about a few more things as far as, your manifesto, the plan, when it comes to parliament as well, a party allyship, all of those.
Yes.
But asante sana, it's been an amazing 1 hour, 15 or so minutes. We'll be right back after this talking data privacy. And let's have a look at what we'll be doing in the next hour. I think the data privacy issue is one that we've talked about several times. So we will be engaging with Anthony Nganga and talking about your data, your privacy, and the risks. And this is beyond just you go here, you leave your name and phone number, and then you find yourself as a registered member of a political party, which happened last week, but one.
I know.
It was last week, but one. Last week.
It was last week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels like forever ago, but
that's a good example of how far it can go. Thank you for bringing that up, because those are some of the cases that we need to understand how that happened. A bit of feedback.
Yep, indeed. On YouTube and Facebook, some on Facebook, they were just asking, so how is he going to run? What political parties is he going to use? And the Michael Chiang says, Owalo the 6th. And Ogongo says, thanks for bringing Owalo, same as Alphonse Kimamo. And then on YouTube?
On YouTube, somebody here says, it's an exercise in futility, no? That's Muiru Busy. Uhuru and Raila combined couldn't win against the incumbent. What does he think he has that Raila and Uhuru didn't have that will make him win against Ruto? He kind of alluded to some of that. Charles Dungo, I don't want to sound cynical, but the ambitions are futile because during the whole interview, there has been no sign of fresh air at all. But that's why we said perhaps we'll bring him back a little bit later down the line.
Yeah, it's the beginning of a conversation.